Dinner was supposed to be ordinary me, my parents, and my sisters sitting around the table with the smell of roast chicken drifting through the air. But then Dad's voice cut across the clatter of forks like a hammer blow. "You've got 1 month to find a new place. We sold the house. You're out." The words froze me in my chair. My fork slipped, hitting the plate with a sharp clang. My sisters exchanged quick smirks, as if they had been waiting for this moment, while Mom just kept her eyes on her food. My chest tightened, my pulse roaring in my ears. In that instant, I realized I wasn't just being pushed out of a house, I was being erased from the family. They packed, they laughed, they left. And 6 months later, when Dad texted, "Why are you still there?" I couldn't help but laugh, because the truth was, the house was mine all along. The silence that followed Dad's announcement was deafening. I stared at him across the table, trying to process what I'd just heard. "What? When did you decide this? Why didn't anyone tell me?" My voice cracked, part shock, part disbelief. Dad leaned back in his chair, folding his arms with the same cold authority he always carried. "We don't owe you an explanation. You have 1 month. After that, the new owners will deal with you." I turned toward Mom, searching for some sign of compassion, but she kept her eyes fixed on her plate, pushing peas around like she hadn't just watched her husband dismantle my entire life. My younger sister Sarah smirked and whispered loud enough for me to hear, "Guess you'll be sleeping under a bridge soon." Emma burst into laughter, her shoulders shaking. Anger flared in my chest, but I swallowed it, forcing my face into a mask of helplessness. "Please, this isn't funny. What am I supposed to do?" My words trembled, but it wasn't because I was afraid, it was because I was already holding back laughter. If only they knew. Dad's response was like ice water. "Tears won't help you now. Maybe if you had worked harder, maybe if you had contributed, you'd have a place to go. But you didn't. You've been nothing but a burden." The word burden sliced through me. My fork clattered against the plate, and the room fell back into silence, except for the sound of my sisters' quiet giggles. They were enjoying this, watching me squirm, believing I was powerless. Dinner carried on as if nothing had happened. My family chatted about their moving plans, about the new neighborhood they were excited to explore, about Sarah's upcoming semester at college. And there I sat, invisible at the table I had grown up around, suddenly reduced to an afterthought, an inconvenience they couldn't wait to leave behind. When the last plate was cleared, I excused myself, muttering that I was tired. I trudged upstairs to my room, closing the door softly, before collapsing onto my bed. For a moment I buried my face in the pillow, shaking not with tears, but with suppressed laughter. The irony was too delicious. They thought they had broken me, that they had cast me aside like unwanted furniture, but the truth was, the script had already been flipped. They didn't know that the new owners weren't strangers. The house they had so proudly sold out from under me? It was mine. I rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling, with a grin spreading across my face. Let them think I was weak. Let them believe they had the upper hand. In 1 month, when they expected to see me gone, the joke would be on them. Lying on my bed that night, I replayed Dad's words over and over. "You have 1 month. New owners will deal with you." He had no idea how close he was to the truth. The new owners would deal with me, because I was the new owner. It had all started 2 months earlier. I was browsing real estate listings, half-heartedly dreaming about buying my own place. I never expected to see my childhood home staring back at me from the screen, photos of every room, including mine, cluttered with my clothes and books. They hadn't even bothered to tell me they were selling. My stomach twisted at first, but then another thought struck me, one so daring it almost made me laugh out loud. I called Jake, my best friend and business partner. He picked up on the second ring. "You sound wired. What's going on?" "Jake, you're not going to believe this. My parents listed the house. My house. The one I still live in." He paused. "Wait, you're serious? They didn't tell you?" "Nope, not a word. But get this, I want to buy it. Through the company. They'll never know it's me." For a moment, all I could hear was static on the line. Then Jake let out a low whistle. "That's either genius or insane. Probably both." "Exactly. But think about it. They want me gone? Fine. Let them think they've won. Meanwhile, I'll be signing the deed." The next week was a blur of secret meetings and phone calls. I hired an agent who promised discretion. Every time I signed a form, my hands shook not from fear, but from exhilaration. Each signature was a step closer to turning their betrayal into my revenge. I played the part of the clueless daughter perfectly at home. At dinner, when they whispered about moving trucks and new neighborhoods, I nodded along, feigning confusion. Inside, I was laughing. Every word they spoke was another layer of irony piled onto the truth they couldn't see. One night, I overheard Mom in the hallway, her voice hushed but smug. "Amber will have no choice but to grow up after this. It'll be good for her." Dad chuckled. "Finally, she'll learn what responsibility feels like." I pressed my pillow over my face, biting down to stifle the laughter threatening to explode. If only they knew the paperwork was nearly finalized. If only they knew their useless daughter was about to become their landlord. The day the sale went through, I sat at my desk holding the signed documents. My name, well, technically the company's name stamped across the top. A chill ran down my spine. It wasn't just a house. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't weak. Proof that I had outplayed them at their own cruel game. And as I tucked the papers into a folder, a thought flickered through my mind. Let them think I'm broken. The real show hasn't even started yet. To understand why I didn't hesitate to outsmart my own family, you'd have to know what it was like growing up in that house. From the outside, we looked normal enough. White picket fence, holiday lights in December, photos on the mantle. But behind closed doors, favoritism wasn't just present, it was law. When Sarah turned 16, Mom and Dad threw her a huge, sweet 16 party. Balloons, a rented DJ, cake taller than I was. Every cousin, neighbor, and classmate filled our backyard. I still remember the way Dad beamed as Sarah twirled in her new dress. 5 years earlier, on my 16th birthday, I came home to find a small grocery store cake sitting on the kitchen counter. "Happy birthday," scrawled in thin blue icing. No candles, no party, no guests. Mom handed me a slice while Dad watched TV. "Don't eat it all at once," she muttered. That was it. When Sarah turned 18, Dad tossed her car keys with a grin. "Every girl needs her own ride," he said proudly. "I got $20 in an envelope when I graduated high school." 20. "Congrats, kiddo," Dad said, already walking away. Emma wasn't left out either. Every summer, they took her and Sarah on vacations. Florida beaches, Disneyland, family reunions across the country. Me? "Someone needs to watch the house," Mom would say flatly. So I stayed behind, watering plants, scrolling through photos they posted online of roller coasters and sandy sunsets. Christmas was the cruelest. The tree drowned in gifts for Sarah and Emma, shiny gadgets, jewelry, expensive clothes while I unwrapped socks or notebooks. One year, Sarah unwrapped an iPhone while I peeled the paper off a pack of pens. Sarah squealed, "Oh my God, thank you." I forced a smile and whispered, "Thanks," clutching pens that cost less than the ribbon around her box. I learned early not to ask for much. Whenever I tried, Dad would sigh, "We're saving for your sisters. You'll understand one day." That day never came. Instead, I learned to earn my own. At 15, I picked up shifts at the grocery store after school. My first few paychecks went toward a beat-up laptop from a pawn shop. It was ugly plastic, cracked near the hinges, one key missing, but when I booted it up, I felt powerful. At school, I was taking a free programming class, and suddenly the world opened. Lines of code made more sense to me than my own family ever had. I still remember Dad's reaction when I told him about college acceptance letters. "That's nice," he said without looking up from his plate. When I asked about financial help, he cut me off. "We're not paying for your college. That money's for Sarah and Emma." That night, I stared at the ceiling of my tiny room, laptop humming beside me. The decision was clear. If they weren't going to invest in me, I'd invest in myself. And that's exactly what I did. College was supposed to be a fresh start, but even there, my family's shadow lingered. On move-in day, Sarah and Emma tagged along, whining about being bored. Dad handed me a used comforter from the trunk and muttered, "Don't expect visits, we've got enough on our plate with the younger girls." I nodded, pretending it didn't sting. But once classes began, I discovered freedom. No parents watching, no sisters smirking, just me and the hum of my secondhand laptop in a cramped dorm room. I worked nights at a fast food place and weekends stocking shelves at a hardware store, every dollar feeding my tuition, books, and endless cups of bad coffee. It was in a sophomore programming class that I met Jake. He slid into the seat next to me one morning, grinning like he already knew something I didn't. "You're Amber, right? I saw your code project last week. It was kind of genius." I raised an eyebrow. "Kind of? Okay, fine, actually genius. Want to team up for the next assignment?" That one project turned into 2, then 10. Soon we were meeting outside class, sketching ideas on napkins at greasy diners, our laptops glowing deep into the night. One weekend, Jake leaned back in his chair and said, "Why are we selling our time to professors for grades when we could be selling real programs for cash?" It sounded ridiculous at first, but we tried anyway. We built a simple inventory system for a local boutique. When the owner handed us $500 in cash, I thought my hands might shake the bills right out of my grip. This actually worked," I whispered. Jake just grinned. From then on, we chased every opportunity: accounting programs for small shops, scheduling tools for busy offices. The money wasn't glamorous, but compared to my dad's paycheck at the hardware store, it was real proof. Proof I was building something no one could take from me. At home, though, I kept my mouth shut. I still lived in my childhood bedroom during breaks, still drove my beat-up Honda Civic, still wore thrift store jeans. At dinner, Dad would complain about bills, Mom would gush about Sarah's volleyball trophies, Emma would beg for a new phone. No one asked how my classes were going. No one cared. One night, while clearing dishes, Mom cornered me. "Now that you're done with sophomore year, you should start paying rent. $800 a month." I blinked. $800? For my own room? "You're an adult now. It's time you carried your weight. We're not running a charity." I forced a calm smile. "Sure, no problem." Inside, I almost laughed. 800 was less than what I earned in a single coding project. That was the moment I realized something. My family's rejection had become my fuel. They thought they were pushing me down, but really, they were handing me every reason to climb higher. By senior year, Jake and I were running on fumes. We lived off ramen and vending machine coffee, renting a shoebox office with flickering fluorescent lights and broken blinds, 2 desks, 2 laptops, and a dream that felt both unstoppable and insane. But beneath the exhaustion was momentum. Our little projects had taught us more than any textbook. And now we wanted something bigger. Something that could prove we weren't just kids tinkering, we were creators. We started building a supply chain management system, complex, ambitious, maybe even reckless. Nights blurred into mornings as we coded line after line, fueled by energy drinks and desperation. One night, Jake slammed his laptop shut and groaned. "We're insane. No one's going to buy this. We're wasting our time." I looked up, bleary-eyed, fingers still tapping keys. "Maybe, but if we pull this off, it'll change everything." Jake laughed bitterly. "Or it'll bury us." I smiled. "Then let's go down swinging." We kept going. Weeks passed. The code grew until it was more beast than program, sprawling across our screens like a living thing. We argued, we patched bugs, we broke it and rebuilt it. And somehow, piece by piece, it worked. Then the email came. A mid-sized logistics company had heard about our system through word of mouth. They wanted to test it. Jake nearly dropped his phone. "They want a demo. Tomorrow." I felt the world tilt beneath me. "Tomorrow? Are we even ready?" "Hell no," he said, eyes wide. "But we're doing it." We barely slept. The next day, bleary-eyed but determined, we presented our system in a cramped conference room. Executives in suits sat across the table, skeptical and stiff. My voice shook at first, but as I explained the features, real-time tracking, predictive analytics, seamless integration, I felt the confidence rise. This was ours. We had built this from nothing. When the meeting ended, the suits whispered among themselves. One finally spoke. "We'll be in touch." Days crawled. Then Jake burst into the office one afternoon, waving his laptop like a madman. "Amber, you need to see this." I leaned over his shoulder. An email filled the screen. My eyes locked on the number. 2.3 million. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, read it again. This can't be real. Jake laughed, half mad. It's real. They want to buy the software. $2.3 million. I sat down hard, the chair squeaking under me. My hands trembled as I covered my mouth. We're millionaires? Jake grinned. Split 2 ways, yeah. We actually did it. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then we both exploded, shouting, laughing, hugging, pounding the walls like lunatics. The cheap office shook with our joy. We had clawed our way out of obscurity, and no one could take it from us. That night, we celebrated with cheap pizza and beer, because old habits die hard. I raised my glass. To us. To the kids nobody believed in. Jake clinked his bottle against mine. To the future. But when I went home, reality hit. Mom and Dad were watching TV, Sarah texting, Emma scrolling through TikTok. None of them knew. None of them cared. To them, I was still the invisible daughter, the burden, the afterthought. At dinner, Dad sighed about bills, Mom complained about tuition for Sarah, and Emma whined about wanting a new car. I sat quietly, chewing my food, the knowledge burning inside me like a secret flame. They thought I was powerless. They thought I was broke, clinging to my tiny room, barely scraping by. What they didn't know was that I now had more money in my account than Dad would make in a lifetime. I looked around the table, forcing a neutral smile. Inside, a storm raged. If only you knew, I thought. If only you knew who I really am now. And that's when it hit me. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their scraps of attention. I had built my own future, brick by digital brick. The only question left was this: when the moment came, would I reveal it? Or would I let them choke on their own ignorance until the truth crushed them? 2 months after that life-changing deal, I sat at my desk one night, scrolling through real estate listings, not because I needed a new place. I could have afforded a penthouse by then, but because the idea of finally moving out lingered in the back of my mind. That's when I saw it. My house. Our house. The photos hit me like a punch to the chest. The living room where I had spent countless birthdays ignored. The kitchen where Mom once laughed as Sarah unwrapped an iPhone while I got socks. The bedroom with my posters still on the wall. They had listed it without telling me. For a moment, hurt burned hot. Then, anger. Then something darker, an idea so wild I actually laughed out loud. I picked up my phone. Jake answered on the second ring. It's midnight. Why are you calling me like you just found buried treasure? Because I did, I said. My parents put the house up for sale. They didn't even tell me. But guess what? I'm going to buy it. Silence. Then a low whistle. Wait, you're serious? Dead serious. Through the company. They'll never know it's me. Jake chuckled nervously. That's insane. Or brilliant. Maybe both. The next day I contacted a discreet agent, one who didn't ask too many questions. The paperwork began, and suddenly I was living a double life. At home, I played the role of the clueless daughter. At night, I was signing forms, negotiating prices, and wiring deposits. Dinner conversations turned surreal. Mom would casually mention how the buyers seemed eager. Dad would sigh dramatically, talking about how Amber needs to figure her life out before she gets kicked out. Sarah would smirk and whisper, better start shopping for cardboard boxes. I nodded, hiding my grin behind my water glass. If only they knew. The closer we got to closing day, the more exhilarating it became. Every signature was a secret victory. Every notarized stamp felt like justice pressed into paper. One evening, while walking down the hall, I overheard Mom and Dad whispering outside their bedroom door. She's going to be shocked when the new owners show up, Mom said, almost gleeful. Dad chuckled. Maybe this will finally force her to grow up. She's been leeching off us for too long. I had to press my fist against my mouth to keep from laughing. Grow up? I was weeks away from owning the very roof over their heads. The morning of the closing, I woke up early, heart pounding. Jake met me outside the attorney's office, grinning like a kid about to commit the best prank of his life. We signed papers, shook hands, and just like that, the house was mine legally, irrevocably mine. That evening, I returned to a home filled with moving boxes, Dad paced the living room, barking orders at the movers. Sarah whined about packing. Emma scrolled on her phone, and Mom checked lists with her usual tight-lipped smile. When she saw me, she actually had the audacity to pat my arm. "Well, Amber, this is it. You've got 1 month before the new owners move in. Better start looking for an apartment." I let my face fall, feigning dread. "Right. Yeah, I'll figure something out." Sarah giggled, carrying her suitcase. "Good luck affording anything on your pathetic salary." Emma chimed in without looking up. "Maybe you can crash in your car." "Oh, wait, that piece of junk probably won't even start." Dad stepped back into the room. "Movers are done, let's go." And just like that, they left, not even glancing back. I stood alone in the empty house, heart thundering. The silence wrapped around me, not heavy, but liberating. I pulled out my phone and called Jake. "They're gone," he laughed. "So, landlord or homeowner? Which title do you prefer?" I grinned, looking around the space that was finally, truly mine. "Both." That night, Jake came over with beer and pizza. We sat on the bare floor, clinking bottles, the laughter echoing off empty walls. For the first time, the house didn't feel like a cage. It felt like freedom. And as I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, I thought, let them believe I'm broken. They just handed me the sweetest victory of my life. 6 months passed in a blur of quiet triumph. I furnished the house, filled it with everything my younger self had once been denied. Soft couches, a giant TV, even a gleaming espresso machine that hissed like victory every morning. I expanded the business with Jake, hired 2 programmers, and watched the numbers in my bank account climb higher than I ever dreamed. For the first time in my life, silence was my companion. No more insults at the dinner table, no more smirks from Sarah, no more Dad's disappointed sighs. Just me, my work, and the walls of a house that belonged to me. Then, one ordinary afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Why are you still there?" I stared at it, laughter bubbling up until I actually had to sit down. Of course, the nosy neighbor must have spilled everything. They thought I was squatting in some stranger's home. I typed back nothing. Instead, I waited. 2 days later, a car pulled into my driveway. My heart thudded as I peeked out the window. Mom, Dad, Sarah, and Emma stepped out together, their faces tight, uncertain. For the first time, they weren't the masters of this house. They were visitors. I opened the door before they could knock. "Come in," I said casually, stepping aside. They walked in and froze. Their eyes darted across the living room, the new sectional couch, the massive TV, the polished wood floors. Emma's mouth fell open. Sarah whispered, "Jesus, this place looks incredible." Dad muttered under his breath, "This must have cost a fortune." Mom finally turned to me, voice sharp. "Amber, explain. How are you still here? Who owns this house? Where did you get the money for all of this?" I sat down on the couch, crossing one leg over the other. "Me. I own it. My company bought the house. I'm not going anywhere." For a moment, silence. Then chaos. "That's impossible," Mom screeched. "You don't have that kind of money. You're just a programmer scraping by." "Actually," I said calmly, "I run a software company. We've been very successful. I'm worth over $3 million now." Their faces drained of color. Mom actually clutched the back of a chair to steady herself. Dad's mouth worked, but no sound came out. Then Emma shrieked, "If you're rich, then you have to help us. I want a new phone and Sarah needs tuition and—" "Emma, stop," Dad snapped, but his voice lacked authority. He turned to me, forcing a smile. "Amber, let's talk. We've had some financial difficulties. The new house is expensive. Sarah's college bills are piling up. We need your help, your family." I laughed a sharp, bitter sound. "Family? Let me get this straight. You sold this house out from under me, left me here like trash, told me I had a month before strangers threw me onto the street. You laughed when Sarah and Emma joked about me living under a bridge. And now you come back, asking for money?" Mom's eyes filled with tears. "We didn't know you had money then. If we had known—" "If you had known," I cut in, "you would have taken me with you. You would have treated me better, not because you loved me, but because you wanted my wallet. Dad's face hardened. That's not true. I stood, my voice rising. Really? Because for years you showed me exactly what I meant to you. Nothing. You celebrated their birthdays and forgot mine. You paid for their vacations and told me to stay home. You gave Sarah a car and handed me $20. Don't tell me it's not true. I lived it. Sarah's voice cracked. We didn't mean it like that. I laughed coldly. Yes, you did. And it doesn't matter anymore. Because when you walked out of this house, you made your choice. You left me behind. So now, I'm making mine. I don't owe you anything. Mom sobbed openly. Amber, please, we're still your family. We love you. I pointed at the door. Your tears don't mean anything to me. You should have thought about love before you decided I wasn't worth keeping. They stood frozen, like children caught in their own lie. Finally, I stepped toward the door and pulled it open. Get out. Dad raised his hand in protest. Wait, we can fix this. We can be a real family now. I shook my head. No. You had 25 years to be a real family, and you chose not to. It's too late. One by one, they shuffled out, eyes downcast. Mom was the last to leave. She turned at the threshold, her face streaked with tears. This isn't over, Amber. We won't give up on you. I met her gaze, cold and steady. Yes, it island, and if you keep showing up here, I'll get a restraining order. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and leaned against it, my breath shaking. For the first time, I wasn't the forgotten daughter, the unwanted burden. I was the one with power. And God, it felt good. The house was silent again. My silence. My choice. In the weeks that followed, my phone buzzed with calls and texts I didn't answer. Voicemails piled up. Dad's voice cracked with apologies. Sarah sent long messages about missing me. Emma demanded money for the latest gadget, and Mom begged for just a conversation. I ignored them all. For once, I wasn't desperate for their attention. Eventually, the noise stopped. The silence was permanent, like a door finally locked from both sides. 6 months slipped by. In that time, the company Jake and I built grew stronger than ever. We landed contracts bigger than we dared to dream of. We hired more staff, moved into a sleek office, and watched our revenue climb with dizzying speed. I bought a new car, sleek and silver, the kind Dad used to admire from afar. I even took a 2-week trip to Europe, my first real vacation. No guilt, no permission needed, no one telling me to stay home and watch the house. One rainy afternoon, Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, knocked on my door. She had always been the quiet observer in family drama, the one who never interfered. She hugged me tight and whispered, Amber, I think you should consider forgiving them. They know they made mistakes. They want to make things right. Ah, I pulled back, shaking my head. Aunt Linda, I don't want to see them anymore. I'm done with that life. Her eyes softened. But they're still your family. No, they stopped being my family when they decided I wasn't worth keeping. Blood doesn't excuse betrayal. She sighed, kissed my forehead, and left me with a sad smile. That night, I sat by the window with a cup of coffee, watching rain streak down the glass. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free from their judgment, free from the endless cycle of favoritism and neglect, free to live my life without wondering why I was never enough for them. And yet, I couldn't help but wonder if I had told them about my success earlier. Would they have treated me differently? Probably. They would have invited me to vacations, remembered my birthdays, smiled at me across the dinner table, but it would have been fake, the same way Mom's tears had been fake when she begged me for money. They would have wanted me around not because they loved me, but because I could give them something. That was never love. Buying this house wasn't just revenge. It was revelation. It showed me who they truly were and who I had become. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the burden. I was strong, independent, successful, and finally at peace. I walked through the house, touching the walls, remembering every slight, every wound that had once made me feel small, and instead of pain, I felt gratitude. Because every cruel word, every forgotten birthday, Every dismissal had forged me into someone who no longer needed them. This house wasn't their victory. It was mine, and as I turned off the lights that night, slipping into the quiet embrace of my own home, I knew one thing for certain. I had built a life they could never take away from me.